Okay. Morning all. Well, okay. So I had a productive weekend. Um, like I even got stream about work. Well, not stream, but restream. Okay, cool. Um, so this weekend I managed to actually get my game library app up and running finally. I got this published. This is where I think that AI stuff is definitely helping a lot in terms of the deployment of this. I didn't really understand the pieces for, but I could get walked through them pretty quickly. And this is now a deployed app. This obsess over these things. So rise that discussion in my head as devs should figure out what the rest of for refinement, which is very obvious. Yes, that is the crux of what I was saying. Yeah, you're gonna be able to touch the computer, grass and material. So, um, that just means that that's settled in a bit. That's not necessarily. It's obvious when you it's obvious when you know, right? When you think about it that way, but it's not obvious beforehand. It's not always easy, especially if you're used to working a certain way. Sorry, I'm going to keep clicking through these. Obsessive. I've been building the dashboard and stuff and adding features to it all weekend. Um, so yeah, my game library is finally live in a state where I'm doing it now. So enabled not getting the ticket out from product. What enabled that was not getting the out from product, giving the ticket to DNA. Yeah. Um, so so what we're going to do our app up today. A minute to get settled. I had to shut my computer down. So I had to restart everything this morning. Um, yeah, again, these processes break very easily. They break when people don't respect the process, right? When the system is not correct, it's easy to justify corrections in wrong direction, such as, oh well, we don't get enough from product management, therefore what we should do is we should build the tickets ourselves, and then when they ask us for something, we'll just give it them. So then things don't work that way that way because you're interpreting their requirements and they like it because you're delivering stuff. When you deliver things wrong, it's like, well, we need to know what you're working on and how long this is going to take, etc. You start estimating, and the system descends. Um, a lot of these things work when everyone is invested in keeping the system afloat, doing their part towards the system. So, again, why? Dev destroyer of products. No. So this weekend, I again was working on. I was working in two directions. I was getting the game library app up, which I did. I got that deployed. I got a pipeline there, so that's now deploying to. And part of getting the game library deployed was understanding how to use the VPS tool and how I might do some of those. So there was two motives there, and what I ended up with was a DigitalOcean deployment. So I've got a Postgres DigitalOcean server, costs about $15 a month, and then a droplet into which I have placed the Ubuntu system that hosts Docker and hosts my website and my application. So they're contained in that manner. So no Kubernetes or anything too complicated. Just a Docker deployment of the website and the um, backend, and then a deployed Postgres server. And what that means is now I can deploy the mobile app, the game library app in, just by creating a release from branch. So I create a release and it publishes, and a few minutes later it restarts and everything's good. And I've been practicing that this weekend. Um, Part of why I wanted to go that route was, yes, it's going to cost me about $25 a month to host the game library, but now I have the information, I have it backed up, I have all that stuff, and um, I can now understand those tools. So when it comes to Kaizu, maybe that's an option, right? It's not going to be the most trafficked uh, application in the world. I can create a droplet, deploy the services all as one droplet or a couple of droplets, um, and have uh, have this working that way. Host one Postgres server, one Mongo server, etc. So anyway, it's good practice. So what I also worked on over the weekend was introducing changes to the Kaizu design, and this makes it look a little bit more complicated. Now, all I've done is moved identity up here out the way. That's still the same. Nothing's really changed there. I'm just trying to indicate that auth 0 is how the client authenticates. And then what I've got here is a little bit of a quirky difference now. I've introduced SignalR and SignalR hubs for entity updates. What I was doing was, when you change one of these, you have to deal with the eventual consistency. I had a bit of a struggle, and Jota saw this on Saturday, of trying to make sure that things were, if I edited something over here, that um, let's make that May 15th, and then go, hope that works. Then go over here, that should be May 15th. Oh, one that wasn't in there, to April 29th. Let's move that to April 20. There you go. Now that updates there live. Um, Challenge is, if I refresh the screen, this gets lost, right? Um, yeah, yeah. Um, so what I've now implemented is, and it's really transparent, but as I join, as I leave and join pages, I will join groups, and as changes come down from, this, it's a bit of a weird workflow. I'm essentially starting to move toward using Kafka as a service bus, um, in some respects, because I could use service bus for this, but it's probably not a bad thing. So as the view receiver now captures something, integration, a deliverable, So this captures the actual update to the deliverable. If I go to the receiver itself for deliverable, I'll do the update, means that all this has to go through, and then I'll publish an entity change signal. This says, hey, this, by the way, this changed. And all this is a very simple Kafka topic that says entity updates. Well, you might care about these things. It publishes it with the tenant identifier, the identifier of the thing, and the type. And there's a small, little thin signal R service now here, entity changes, that has a single hub and a single receiver. And this just receives that entity changed and sends it to the group. Um, so anyone in this group of tenant and type will get notified. By the way, changed. It's up to those clients to decide what they need to do, but this kind of narrows the number of people. So for a given tenant, for a given entity type, who's watching this topic, right? This thing right now. And in here, I just have accepted entities. So if someone tries to register for a group that doesn't exist yet, then we don't ignore it, don't do anything. But this will deal with the connect. Yeah. So the idea is that as something changes, we can notify the client. By the way, this entity has event sorcery. Um, this has changed. Now, I did kind of have a version of this working, and as I look back, I realized this is exactly what I developed, and I do have a service bus version of this working. So there is GraphQL consumer for the service bus notification that, by the way, this object changed, and that now comes out here. The problem with that is the receivers for this view might not have actually received it yet. Right? So if you think about this as kind of like the client backend, right? So this is the client backend, and basically this is all one piece. And so now when a view receiver um, takes the information, saves it to the database, we now publish this event, and now this signal thing knows that that data is actually captured in the view. Using the transforms, using the notifications over here is great and all. Those things can still have value, but I don't now need the GraphQL sockets the way I did. So I'm going to end up removing some of those things. And signal R being the one that tells me what happened. The idea is that what should happen is if something gets updated in the back end, um, it will become stale, and when you go to retrieve it, actually there's two different paths here. Let me go into that a little bit. I kind of had it document out some of what we were working on. So there's the, hey, by the way, it's stale. So when you go to load it next, you need to go fetch it again. Or there's the, oh, by the way, go refresh. This entity is just updated. You want to go pull the latest. I'm still determining how I want to do that. Um, yeah. So we went through this entire thing of how does it flow, what does it look like? Because I went, as Dota saw on Saturday, some of this stuff was just completely broken because I'd asked the AI to help me with signal stores to make sure that they were aligned, and it pushed and pulled. So it made a change in one place, broke it in another place. Hilarity ensued. So yeah, The idea being now that we should end up a little bit more consistent. I'm not saying it's perfect. There's still tweaks and refinements to be made, um, but it is functional. I believe. So again, the purpose of this screen is now this is open for review. So as a developer, this review tab shows when there's items to be reviewed. And this might happen weeks or even months before you're actually going to work on this stuff. But the idea is the visibility is there. And now, uh, ETL caching would, I'll think of it. ETL on what? What, what being cached? Uh, the purpose of the idea here is to make this not as chatty. So that's why the Signal R topic groups, Signal R message groups. When you go, if you do this, do that, what you see is if I go to planning, nothing happens. I've joined the group sprints. If I go to backlog, huh? What happened? Where? Left group deliverables, left group sprints, join group deliverables. Yeah, it's not perfect. Join group sprints. It's joining those groups. Billy, hello. How you doing? The idea is that it's listening to those groups on the pages it needs to listen to. The other idea would be that it would load that data when it goes in. So we go to finding a deliverable with default initial status. And we move this progress initiatives. So this view and save that. That's on front end back end, so that should be there. So now have that. This is working a little bit more consistently, not perfectly, but we'll get. It's working better than it did on Saturday. Though. So let's have a look at this now. We might actually. I'm tempted to wipe it again and start again, but at the same time, I don't want to mess around with it. Feels like it just time into it. Oh, that's a nice indicator. Hmm. Maybe hello. Everything is well. I'm not gonna spend time trying to refine this out too far. Um, the caching right now is basically it will hold on to the object. If I again because of eventual consistency, right? Um, can't uh, can't get the state from the server. Working on today, I am working on. Well, right now I'm kind of passing through what I did over the weekend with Signal R to kind of make an optimistic try. Um, and debating what really comes next. So client has information on it. I update it. Overall, yeah, I had a productive weekend. I was just showing. I got my GameStack website up and running, so I can now go in and do my price link again, which is a very therapeutic thing to do. Get my stats. Got sharing, and can't do that. I can't show the sharing because it's my wife's email address on it, which dawned on me. I got to be careful there. We have the stats. I can change light mode, dark mode. Um, this is this here is the edit activate admin mode. So if I do that, I can edit. I got visible status in there. So if I want to share my library with someone, I can share it, but I can also mark it as visible so they don't see that game shared. If there's games that I don't really want to share, um, um, yeah, we'll do that. But here I can just go here, link that back. Now that's gone from this list because there's 55 games priced in PlayStation 5. So yeah, did I just start a hockey a hockey memory? Um, I find this very therapeutic to go through. But I can also wish list items, and I can share the link. I can uh, share that publicly and see what games I got. If I add a game, it removes it from there. I've got barcode scanning in here, so it got very productive very quick. So that was part of my weekend. Um, Fucking use core memory unlocked. Uh, yeah, again, Signal Art over the weekend implemented the ability. So when I say implemented, the client side of this, I have used AI for. Right? I'm using AI to try and speed up something. They don't sit as well with me. Back end, I wrote. So went through, did the hub stuff. Now again, aligning on the guidance, but this is all based upon um, running it. So create the hubs as you using AI. Yes, I am. On the front end, it makes it much easier. Marcy, hello. How you doing? Come in. So the client is subscribed. As it moves in and out of pages, it will join and leave groups that for objects. So if I join a group, if I go to a page that has none of the data I care about, next time I go back into that page, the assumption is my data is stale. Refresh the data. If I'm joining a group and while I'm in that page, I will get told there's updates which will mark my data as stale. If I'm looking at something, the idea would be if I'm looking, let's say I'm going to implementation, review, I go in here and I'm looking at something in here, or rather here, and that gets updated by someone else, that should reload. Suppose I should test it, really. So I added another user. Um, Localhost. Oh, actually, that's the oh, why is that going to join the same session? Localhost 4200. Sign in. They're in the same tenant. I update this one to the 25th. Ah, no problem. I guess I know what I'm fixing today. That ain't gonna work. That is a problem with, I say that again, it'll error with the 500. And if I look at it, the instance of entity type deliverable cannot be tracked, but another instance with the same key already being tracked. So my problem with that determining what's going wrong here is there are many points in the application that touch that. When I save that, it goes to write. It loads that object out of the DF, and it's saying that it can't do that because one's already being tracked. So that suggests that one of the previous updates on that thing has not disposed properly. This is the challenge of this is your first time joining the stream. I'm always open to questions, thoughts, opinions on what I'm doing. I want to know more about why, how. Welcome to. When you go and you open a planning item, or deliverable, sorry, you go to update the deliverable, object, repository. Save that and update. Not manage the life cycle. Fine. Add transient. Repository. They're all added as transient. So those should come and go quickly. Add transient. Add pool DB context with events. Add singletons for those. Fine. Add the interceptors. Go to console and debug. Don't think that should be scoped. I think that will break things quite because hard to describe. Sense for when you go into the API, go to Little's Law. I've seen that one. Go to the application, goes, it saves to the database. Right. Once that's saved, we basically queue any enqueue right. Then we have another process that's running. Background worker, and that is outbox processor. That calls essentially the things done here. And I had an issue with this earlier on in that I had so those essential. So the domain events are put into a queue, they process in a queue, and this runs as a background worker. So there's nothing linking these two DB contexts. My suspicion is that when I update one, I'm not losing the DB context is being reused. I'm not losing tracking. I just don't know how to prove that or how to log that. So my question is, in terms of Jira tickets, if you put too many features into dev at once, the arrival rate of new work, time spent per work item will increase, text will increase. Yeah, it makes sense. Um, uh, I'm just trying to figure out how to type this out. Um, so my suspicion is that I'm not disposing of the DB context properly, but it's scoped, not transient. Or did I change that? Yes, I did change that to scope, didn't I? I'm going to try that, see what happens. Because then it should only last for the life cycle of the request. My suspicion is though that my error on the background worker being a scoped context. They are very good. There was a quick convert to liking the Zybots. Over the summer, probably see more of that in the stream. Service is not able to be constructed. So that just completely bought that because the background worker can't work as a. Yeah. So not the end of the world, as long as I can figure out how to make that. And I'm now pushing audio through one as well, meaning I don't have to. Yeah, I got the one, and then I realized how useful it was, and immediately bought a second 5 options. wonder if the problem is I don't control those services. That mediator stuff is all handled. Yes. Yeah. There's a lot of lot of flexibility in them. And what's more doesn't get processor, IQ processor, yeah, what storage. Oh, this would be kept alive, wouldn't it? I think they were like $170 a piece or something like that. That way, what? Like 25, $179 for the NDI version. No, they're great. So, yeah, over the summer, I um the larger machines aren't really good to have on the same network or on the same in the same room because I have an AC unit, and so having lower powered machines will be good. But then I don't want to be streaming off. I'm trying to think about the setup there. Um, so ah, so what I've done is I've just posted that into my chat with Ford to say I suspect this might be my problem. Background service is a singleton, so you can't with background service you can't do scoped injection because it's long running, right? I suppose the fix is to not inject key processor, instead inject service scope factory. Then we're going to be rapidly. So yeah, so the suggestion is I service scope factory, right? Yep. Voice. And then in here, uh, wait using bar scope equals scope factory dot scope. So you don't put bar processor. Right, fired service. Right. So my next question there, and it's something that I'm going to have when you're using AI to give you answers to things, you still have to think about the behavior you're asking for because it will give me what I just asked it for, right? Is that the problem? Yeah, that is the problem. That is a problem. I felt that was a problem beforehand. The problem is in my PI scope. When I did it here, that's a singleton. I get one of those Q processors injected at the application start, which means the DB context that's created there is left open. So the moment I track something, it's still and don't flush it properly, it's still being tracked. And I probably introduced this behavior where I saw it elsewhere because when I do, I'm just trying to confirm my vision here. I probably introduced this behavior when I did the oh, status of here. There's one of them where I don't use a no tracking. But one of these I've pulled out and very easy to look at the specifications. Yeah, this one. Uh, Environment identifier. Yeah, there's one of these here that I've used, and it's left the object tracked. Problem is also how you ask it. If you ask it possible solution, it'll go for it. Hi, Kenny, by the way. Um, so what I was saying, I'm not saying the problem with the AI. I'm saying that even though I've asked the AI the question, I still have to know the solution I'm trying to implement. I still have to understand what it's telling me to do and why it solves what I'm. You can't just follow it blindly. Um, Even if I asked the question, giving it the code sample and said, I gave it the error. It said, here, this is the problem. You should use the service scope factory. I gave it the code and said, hey, I believe this is my problem. It's a background service. Yes, likely is your problem. But what is the cost of doing this now, right? It might be the answer, but um, am I now going to be creating and deploying objects really quick or creating and hoping that they dispose quick enough? Um, I run it every 10 seconds, so it might not be too bad. Okay, so no, it's fine. A new scope every 10 seconds is negligible. EF cores DB contest is designed to be a lightweight, short-lived unit of work. The connection itself is pooled at the database driver level, so you're not opening and closing TCP connections every time. That ain't going to cause a problem there. Now I have another issue as to I have to do this. Um, and actually, I do that. Probably open. But overall, kind of my point there was you still have to pay attention to what the answer is that you're being given. You can't just follow focus. think this might suffer a similar problem. Although this kind of sits there constantly. So that's probably not the same issue. And I've recently made another change to one of the other libraries similar to this, the mediator outbots. I put Kafka bots, yeah. Kafka bots is in. This is a strange project. I build the NuGet packages from one project. The others I build them from separate projects. Mediator sagas might be one that does. That's not the mediator. I believe I made a similar, yeah, service scope factory. I had the same problem. I had a massive memory leak in this one. So reason to be hopeful here. Key process injection, background job, process. Fine guy, hello. Hey, Mr. Freeman. Why? It's not Gordon's fault. Kept running him into situations and ended. Now I have to push this, and now I have to build this. I did do. I did just that on that. On the main branch. GitHub.com. Um, these libraries, the mediator outbots, these um, when I was looking at this problem over the weekend, right, I was really concerned. I had this big moment of when I show this to people, I think like that's absolute overkill. Why are you doing it? Why is this so complicated? You don't need it this complicated. And I'm trying to be mindful of the fact that the system is complicated. It's okay for the system to be complicated. Um, sorry, just release of. What that should mean is my scoped stuff now works properly, so now I get a little bit more um, um, isolated behavior. I shouldn't be tracking the same thing in the same context. Again, the same context. They were both in the same. They were transient. They were active, so they were there. I was playing the same. First scope rather. which probably changes some of my other behaviors. Okay, that should get published. So the reason I'm sharing that is because, even though I've come up with this system and people looking at the system for what I'm doing, it might seem overly complicated. It might seem like unnecessarily complicated. Um, but I'm also learning a lot from this. So asking the question of how do I update the client in an optimistic world? Optimistic. The client has the data. The client can't retrieve the data in real time. This does not get stored here for this to retrieve. This requires to go to the view because there's processes in place to publish the data across the system, consolidate it, collapse that data, transform, etc. To get to the view. This can't save something and then immediately get the value back. It has to store that. So it's an optimistic UI. Oh, I can't do that until I've got the other one. Yes. Um, Actually, no, I might not be able to go that way. Might be a thing. But this has separate scopes. Transient. Uh, so yeah, I had this moment of severe doubt. I'm sharing it just because this sort of stuff, right? Of is this too complicated? Am I making this much harder? Is this a maintenance nightmare? Um, the things I'm considering, and in the end, this is so small. This little signal service is so small. It is a receiver which simply receives, builds a key, and then tries to send to that hub. A hub that gets that, and this lives in the same group of receivers as the rest of the. So it's fine. It's, it's slightly overcomplicated, but for what it gives me, it's very powerful. So I'm happy with that. That right? Yes, it is right. So what I'm going to do now, this should start now. That's fine. I just need to come up with what do I want to focus on. What I'm trying to do is get the workflow of um, getting to deliverable place. Okay, yeah, that was weird. I can use outbox. 0.7, that's published apparently. So in a minute or two, we should be able to get that cache. Um, so product manager, sorry, this is the business focus view. This is, hey, these are the things we've got in flow. What's the status of them? We're in planning. Oh, this is in defining. This is ready for review. Um, where are we overall? That's the goal there. The product managers themselves are working through this from the um, planning perspective, they're getting requirements, they're gathering data, they're doing what they need to do to enrich these as much as possible. So they're defining requirements on these things. Look at my bug with the button. Um, Adding the requirements. Actually, add that. Voice mode is not. Boy. Why does I add the requirement button? Not that while I'm asking it. So if I refresh, it'll be there. There is a permission for it, but that's not what this is. Product manager sitting down, going through, having discussions, attaching documents, having meetings, etc., to determine what are these requirements. And when they're ready for these requirements to be actually planned, they move it to ready for. That's the next phase. From a developer perspective, you're working in your backlog most of the time, right? You're working through. Oh, we've got this. Let's pull that into the next sprint. We've got our sprint. These are in progress. We're doing work. We're making things functional. But every couple of days, you go over here and review. We're probably going to put an indicator on here, by the way. There are things for you to review. And what you should see in here is any work that is associated with projects for which your team covers. You might not actually care about most of these, but it's work your team covers. So again, you should have context of what you're working in. You should understand what matters to you, what doesn't. And the goal of this is very much to give you enough notice that this is coming without being prompted. So, go and look, you say, oh, well, we've got this coming up. This is one of the things we're going to plan soon. Oh, and eventually there's going to be comments and stuff in here. Um, sorry. Apparently I can get this if I have no requirements. Okay. So you're going to go through this. You're going to look at the requirements. You're going to requirement is kind of vague here. Might be one of the first things we fix. I'll look at that. This is the problem with creating so much test data. I'm ending up with a lot of stuff I don't understand because it's got no validity. I might need to reset everything. For requirement on planning and delivery. For requirement. I did. Okay. Two things. These two. So I'm just asking Claude to take a look at the screen, and there's no buttons. There should be an add requirement button. And by Claude's own analysis of that rule, the add requirement button should show if there's an item and the item array of requirements is empty. If it doesn't, if it's not null or undefined, it won't show. So if it's null or undefined, it shouldn't show. If it's incorrect. So I'm asking it to look at the screen. It will actually connect. It will actually watch. We'll actually take a look. There you go. It'll navigate. Let me get a screenshot of your app instead. thinking about it. This is one of the benefits of having AI for me. I have someone to bounce ideas off of and bounce thoughts off of at the same time and get something that's meaningful back. Like it might not always be right, but if I treat it like someone I'm working with that might not actually understand the problem or has a completely different perspective, I can get a lot from it at the same time. Deliverable detail. So I don't want to add requirements to the implementation phase. I don't want to add tasks from the requirements phase, right? Or from the planning backlog. I want to keep the two worlds separate. Now, what's going to happen is the implementation side, the expectation would be product manager, when they're ready, they say, okay, let's set up a meeting. That meeting gets scheduled and everyone gets invited. And you can then link to the actual tasks or the requirements that you're actually asking people to look at. Oh, it's going to make some changes. Remove unused requires directive import. Remove requires directive from the imports array if it's not referenced in the template. If item requirements length. If that works better now. Oh, that's looking a little healthier, isn't it? I was missing quite a lot. Oh, looking at it. But I have found that by using AI on this piece, I'm a little bit more disconnected from the code. And the further I go, the less I understand a lot of what I'm doing. I've got to. I do is I actually go and ask it to create review documents and then tutorial documents from the code base. Because now I have context of how it aligns, I can actually learn a bit more from it. So trying to keep expanding that. So here we change the outer if from item and item not requirements to no coalesce to just items. So the add button always shows when a deliverable is loaded. Added coalesce to square braces for the for loop to handle no requirements. And removed deliverable item update from the edit requirement buttons. It's always visible. Oh, interesting. Oh, I had a permission. Unlock deliverable update deliverables, and Claude just decided that needed removing. Fix my problem there. Good. uh, that permission valid. User. Let's just validate the actual permission. Uh, a new chair has made all difference. Nice photo. Which chair do you get? I haven't been looking at chairs myself recently, but because this one is got deliverable item update. User needs. Having back issues, hope it clears out. Yeah. Uh, I'm a big believer in um, spending good money on good equipment. Especially when it comes to like your health, like buying good keyboards, get good mice, don't cause fatigue, etc. Um, the chair is definitely one of those things. I've been actually trying to use my standing desk a bit more recently and getting on the walking pad as well. Helps with my posture. I do slouch. Requirements. Do I actually have any requirements? Planning initiative, deliverable item. Oh. Interesting. My permission system, but we'll get there. So in it was a little overly aggressive there in that it removed the entire thing because what I did is I put the edit requirement behind the deliverable item update, which this user does have as a by the way. And Neka, if you're still around, thank you very much for the follow. Appreciate it. Thought you were in a tie for a second. No. Is it a shadow or is it just my sweatshirt? No, I'm not wearing a tie. That'd be some formal streaming right there, wouldn't it? Okay, so we've got this. What was I doing originally? Planning backlog. Oh. So the user, the developer will go in here, view these requirements. There we go. That's what I was trying to verify before, wasn't I? So that actually was the same component because that wasn't showing. That I should be exploring. Oh, actually, that's what I wanted to fix. As we know, status, find release, um, requirements, requirement. Actually, worth showing if I refresh. So some weirdness with how it loads the data. And this is a challenge I've had a few times now with the data stores. The way I'm using EdgeRX Signal Store, and I'm still trying to get my head around the refinements and the quirks that like going using AI for this has made. But I think that in some states it doesn't load all the data, which is probably the right thing to do. It doesn't try and load everything, but what it creates is a situation where the UI doesn't update properly. So yeah, let's push that. I'm just going to push these straight to development right this second. They are positive changes, and I'm kind of just tweaking things a little bit. What we want now is these to be the requirements, panels, implementation, huge. Also use run. Hello. Good. We even missed the morning stream. All good. Did it. You're coming in. Implementation review should also use Markdown and um, we're playing on the there that goes. So just telling it to use a markdown control for these display properly. Because again, what you want to do is you want to come into the screen and be like, okay, um, these are the projects it's on. It's on this screen because you're a user in a team that cares about this particular project. So again, the user is assigned a team or multiple teams. A team is assigned to projects. So a team can be assigned to many projects, and a user can be assigned to many teams. So there's quite a lot of overlap potential there, but at the same time, like if DevOps could be attached to every team, right? A DevOps team could be attached to every project, so they don't have to be a member of the team, but they can be a member of projects. Um, Benefit being there, the DevOps team can have their own board, they can have their own tasks, they can task anything they want out on here, and the act of delivering the deliverable can have any tasks from different teams, um, all visible to the business. Now, there's one concept I'm struggling with right now that I've kind of backed myself into a design hole on, and that is estimation. So Dosha and I had a good conversation on Saturday, and I was trying to explain, the estimation process, how you might relatively size stories, etc. And this dawning realization that I've got a bit of a gap in time. You don't want two teams to use, if you want two teams to use different mechanisms for estimation, and what I've seen is DevOps teams be given a, not necessarily a pass, but DevOps teams be given. Why is that not actually? That was displaying before, wasn't it? Back over here. So DevOps seems to be given a bit of a pass as towards estimation in terms of, oh, they just put hours on it. The teams do points. How do I consolidate those? I'm not wholly sure I have an answer just yet. Um, that wasn't showing before, was it? I'm on board. That's now showing. Information. Station review. Uh, Interesting. I'll go back. Now that's showing. Just asking it to give me an idea of why this is inconsistent. So as a developer, I go into this screen and I say, okay, Kanban board. We should see a Kanban board of releases pending, in progress, and completed. We should see swim lanes can move a release to in progress from pending, cannot move pending to complete. Now, one thing that's not obvious here, Monsters Dev, welcome in. Well, any thoughts on all integrations you line with Pass? Integrations such as um, well, I think the only integrations that I really care about are in the near term are source control, looking into GitHub and being able to see branches and bits, etc., from this application is pretty much where I think I would get the most use. Further integrations beyond that, integrations with ticketing systems, integrations with other planning systems. I don't think I need to focus too much energy on that. Um, Overall, I haven't really considered integration as massive concern. To be honest, again, the GitHub integration or source control integrations, definitely. I would be considering I'm focused on delivery. That would be naive to not do that. Um, but beyond that, nothing that I've really wanted to focus on because I'm trying to be opinionated. Right, I'm not going to integrate with Jira because the system just doesn't align. You navigate to the review detail. It fetches a deliverable and calls merge enriched. At some point, the planning page initializes load all, which calls into load from server. Load from server calls set all entities. This replaces all entities with only what the planning API returned. If the review deliverable isn't in what planning response, it gets wiped from the entity map. Review details. The same thing happens with reconcile from server in the stale refresh path. Safe method is merge enriched. It only adds updates, never removes. The review page already used it correctly. The fix would be to change load from server in the planning queue feature instead so it doesn't wipe entities loaded by other pages. Yes. Um, so why the question? Um, and do you feel that there would be other integrations that would be necessary, for example? Okay. What this is doing now is it's going off and changing merge and rich because what it was doing is loading from server and not loading all the information. So this kind of it never just refreshes everything. It just kind of pulls in what it's got when it's told to change it. The idea, and it tracks the last server sync date. It's funny because some of these concepts are things I was playing around with when I first started using the signal stores. It's good to see them kind of validated at the same time as I know what I'm learning. Was visible, changed alter if from item to just mark down on review detail, from plain text. Entity store no longer white my planning page. So it was this page doing it, basically. This was loading. If I didn't load that object, it loaded it up. Funny. Done it again. Watch. If I go, oh no, that one. But I went into the define release. If I go into here, go into planning deliverables, then go into, yeah, now I see the detail. Go into status. Yeah, status. Now I go back, it should be loaded. Yeah. I think you got to be careful if considering integrations. I think you have to be careful that you are not um, um, sorry. I think if you're considering integration, you got to be careful you don't send yourself down a rabbit hole of chasing, adding too many features at once and breaking the platform ability. And what value is it adding? My entire approach to this project is once I get this to a good state where I can trace something right through from initiative to delivery, um, not necessarily do the CI/CD part of the delivery, but be able to log the fact that a delivery, a release has been scheduled, and you've said, yeah, a release has been completed. Once that can happen, then I think the system's in a place where I can say, yeah, go and play with this if you want to and see what you think. At that point, I think being able to take on constructive criticism, feedback, and also or requests for, oh, I'd like it to do this, and then evaluating need for those. In the beginning, maybe embrace the ICD, Microsoft Teams, Outlook, Google Workspace to go off data stuff, but then there's like a sea of things. Right. And I can only tackle so many. I'm doing this as a solo, right? So I have to pick and choose. Um, if I can get this to a place where people actually like using it and can use it, that's got to be my priority. The rest, how you do things beyond it, not um, what I want to focus on right now. But being able to schedule a delivery, a release. So as items come out of the boards, right, they'll be attached to, eventually the next phase is adding releases. So you can set which release it lands in, and they'll appear on this board once they're done, once they're completed and the sprint's completed, and now they are ready for release or testing. There's other phases potentially, but ready for release, and you move them through that cycle, and then that's a good place to hand over. Say, hey, go and play with it, see what you would change, see what you would what tools you think it would benefit from, and then I have to assess those. Because even if I was going to do this using full AI, those things still take a good amount of time to evaluate, test, to implement, and to test. So I have to be careful at how fast I go and keep the system intact. I'm not scared of them. Go evaluate them on a case by case. If you are new to the stream, I'm open to all questions and opinions. If you don't like what I'm doing, you think it's a waste of time, that's fine. If you have constructive criticism, that's fine. If you want to learn more about it, you're more than welcome to ask questions. And there is a Discord linked in the cards below that will allow you to, if you have any further questions, if you want to show off your stuff, if you want to ask software development questions, or come and hang out and voice chat from time to time, you're more than welcome to. We do talk about a variety of topics, some software development. But yeah, good little group. So some progress made today. Let's see if we can finish the day by tackling the problem on the other side. I think it's great with competition to invest monopoly. Yeah. My this project is not aimed at being a clone of anything. It's aimed at being a very opinionated approach to how I would want to see this process play out. 5. Or upgrade the one we can do for a second. Great. Oh, okay. So not as much progress as I would like. I'm trying to figure out what do I want to focus on. That's part of the problem is what piece do I want to tackle? And I think I can add tasks. That's great. We've got the release, these pending. Yeah, it's C#. This is all .NET. My project naming is not your conventional project name, but it's C#. I'm a .NET developer of 20 plus years, so it makes sense. Kind of happy in this point. So the application is a full .NET backend with an Angular based front end. And this is this is that project. I've been actually been learning C# last year due to how much they've improved it. They've improved a lot over the last 5 years. So .NET's in a good place as far as its capabilities. I think. Um, I'm not a big fan of some of the frameworks and things around it, but I now not available. I can do Where's the MPG sequel gone? Where's what? Postgres? Ah. I have tried Blazor. I don't like Blazor. Um, not a thing I enjoy. I just don't. I think it's because of the front end. I don't, and that's why I'm using a lot of AI for the front end piece of this application at this point because it just doesn't um, fit in my head as a pattern. Um, some people are like, well, it's C#, but then am I on the server? Am I on the client? Am I on both? I don't know which place I'm in, and I feel that it blurs the lines a bit too much. So just preference. So um, I get it. How did I manage to break that piece? Changed package version. Well, okay. Well, I'll figure out that piece. Why that's again, if you're interested, you're more than welcome to join the Discord. If you have any further, if you have questions, thoughts, opinions, always open to them. I like to learn. It isn't perfect, but this is an application I've bent up over the course of many years, both design and. Um, so, unfortunately, I have a job to do, so I must go and do that. Um, I will be back on Wednesday evening, 619. Teams are 7 will 8:30 a.m. Eastern, Monday, Thursday, and 619 p.m. Wednesday. Um, yeah, but we're going to go raid maybe. Live stream again. Not the 9 to 5. Yeah, the 9 to 5. So gotta go pay the bills. And sadly, uh, Kaizu is not in a position to pay the bills yet. Maybe one day. I would stream full time, by the way. If I actually made this into a product and made money enough to live, I would stream full time. Absolutely. Um, but that's a nice pipe dream. So, um, some progress. We cleaned up some things, got some more consistency on the UI. We changed a bit of a dependency injection nightmare and created another problem apparently. So I'll wait for the full time stream. So, Doran, thank you very much. Thank you very much for joining me today. Let's go raid maybe. Um, maybe works on Barely Fit. Barely Fit is a fitness and exercise application. Also, other random things. Does some game dev. Does all sorts of little bits here. So, highly recommend. Maybe it's a great place to be. So, thank you for joining me. Take care. Have a great rest of your day. Bye all.